Happy Monday. Welcome to our Fiery Embers show on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. This live show is not one that is going to bring you the latest tip on how to increase your VO2 max, but it will make you laugh, which might have some cardio benefits. So stick around and get to learn more about our guests outside the world of swim, bike, and run. Today, I am being joined by Michael Brydges. Michael has just returned back from Tokyo after racing the Tokyo Marathon just for this show. I'm just kidding. Or am I? Anyway, before I bring Michael on, check out the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform. We have a variety of shows, which means there is something for everyone, from music and food to human interest stories of everyday athletes overcoming obstacles to reach their finish line. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And now on Spotify, you can comment on our network so that we can continue to bring great guests like Michael to our shows. So without any further ado, let's get Michael on to our Fiery Embers. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I am fantastic, man. Ever since I came across your account on Threads, I've been just enamored with who you are as a person, and interviewing you for a feature on our website really allowed me to get to know you better. So thank you so much for your time prior. Thank you so much for your time now, and I'm hoping more time in the future.
Of course. No, I really appreciate you taking time to speak with me. It means a lot to me.
So you're a New York City kid, and so we're just going to jump right into the food of New York City, and we're going to do a random list of things. Pizza or bagels, which one wins?
Pizza. I'm not sure if you've been to L&B Spumoni down in it's almost near Coney Island, but
I have not.
That place has been there since the Great Depression, actually. And it was actually recommended to me by an Uber driver of all people while I was driving somewhere in Brooklyn. And he just raved about it. And so I finally found it and we went, and my God, every time my wife and I are in the city, we want to go back, but it's just so far south in Brooklyn that we're just like, one day we'll go. But we used to, when we lived in South Brooklyn, I'd say like every month it'd be like, L&B Spumoni, because they also make their own homemade ice, Italian ice, and it's just during the summer, it's phenomenal.
Does it come in a little cup with the little wooden spoon like the old school days that you get at the grocery store?
It does.
Oh, that is heaven. All right, what's the go-to slice when you're there?
They only do pies, and they do a regular pie, but then they have this, it's almost like an upside down pizza Sicilian, and so it's kind of like the cheese is underneath the sauce. It's not deep dish pizza, but it's just I can't even describe it. Now I want to go back to New York and just go right now.
You got me drooling, dude. So one of our community members, he's out in Pennsylvania, posted about a mustard pie. Have you ever heard of this before?
No, I have not.
So I think he's near Philly. James is his name. He says that between the crust and the sauce, they put like a layer of spicy brown mustard. Then they put the sauce, and then they put the cheese over top. And he says that the tanginess from the mustard just makes it outrageously good. So I might have to give that a shot one day. It sounds sounds weird, but
no, I love spicy mustard, so maybe I like it.
Pizza or cannolis?
I mean, I'm a pizza guy. Just more than likely, whatever question you ask about food, if the pizza's involved, it's probably going to be pizza.
I'll switch it up then. Cannolis or Chinese food?
I mean, New York Chinese food is just like so much better than anywhere else in the country. So, I mean, I probably would have to say Chinese food.
Chinese food or a pastrami sandwich?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I've ever had one.
What?
I know.
What about corned beef?
I'm not sure, actually. My wife may have made it for me before, but I don't think I've had it in the city.
We might have to run you down to Katz's for a moment then. Chinese food or a knish?
Ooh, there's one of those by my house now. It's probably still Chinese food. The wonton soup is just hits different.
It can't be beat, dude. Like when I tell people about Chinese food, I live in LA now, but when I tell people about Chinese food in New York City, it's like, it's unmatched. It really is just unmatched. We went to a place, we lived in Phoenix, called Jade Palace. And it was the first time I've ever had fried rice that has come close to New York City. And it was so good. My wife's face just burst out in laughter because it looked like I was having an experience when I was eating it. Like it was so damn
Just
good.
brings you back. Just brings
Yep.
you back.
Have you ever heard of bulletproof Chinese restaurants in like the Bronx and like the outer boroughs?
It sounds familiar to me.
So when I've mentioned this before, people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's literally the restaurant is behind a bulletproof glass,
Yep.
and they have like a lazy Susan so that you put your money on the lazy Susan, they spin it around with your food so you can't get in.
I didn't know that was what it was called. I had those when I used to live in Flatbush.
Yeah. I always call them bulletproof Chinese restaurants, but the food that comes out of those places is it's unbeaten, undefeated.
Especially if you go there often enough where they know what your order is and they know how to cook it just perfectly.
Exactly. That's exactly right, man. You got to become a fixture at the restaurant. You walk in, you don't even have to place an order.
Exactly.
There is a restaurant, pizza joint in Seattle called Bambino's, and I would go there every Friday, and I would walk in, and they would be like, "Here you go," because I would order it and then just pick it up, and they would be like, "Hey, here you go." Like they didn't even have to ask me my name anymore. They knew exactly what it was that I wanted.
I used to work at the World Trade Center, and this is going to sound so weird, but when I was trying to lose weight and my doctor was like, you need to eat healthier, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to Subway and I'm going to basically get a vegetable sandwich. And it became literally a daily thing. I would eat it every single day for lunch to the point where I would walk in. There could be a line out the door. They would see me and they would just start making my sandwich. And then I could just jump in line in front of everybody. It was one of the only places where I felt super special. I remember it was for a little bit. I moved to Florida to be with she was my fiance at the time, to be with her family, and then we moved back up to the city. And I went back in. It had to be maybe 8 months later. I walked in and I was ordering my sandwich, and the woman was like, "Okay, what do you want?" And then she looked up. She's like, "Oh my God!"
She remembered you?
Yeah, she was like, "I'm so glad you're okay."
It's awesome. You need to go back into the city one day and get a picture in front of it. That would be iconic.
It was in a subway station. Like you walk down the stairs to the entrance to the subway station, and they shut down that whole area for renovation. So I think they moved it, but the last time we went, it was just all boarded up, the whole stairway, and I was like, I am so sad now.
Like all the memories probably went flying through your mind, man.
Exactly.
While we're on the topic of food, you've just came back from Japan. What was the best thing you ate while you were over there?
Oh my God, my wife and I are obsessed with this ramen place over there called Ichiran, which it's kind of almost it's like a chain restaurant there where they have them all over Japan, but there's only, I think there's one in Manhattan, there's one in Brooklyn. There's two in Manhattan. So I think there's three in New York City, and I think that might be it over here. But they make everything fresh every day. They have like a secret like spice creation that they have, and it is just incredible. And over there, you get like a whole bowl with ramen and everything. You can get eggs with it. You can get pork, whatever you want, and it's like $8, and it's huge. And then because I was carving up for the marathon, I was getting that, and then you can order refills for the ramen noodles. And so I would get I think the day before the marathon, I got the bowl ramen, and then I got 2 full refills of the ramen. And my wife was like, "Can I curse? Is that?"
Yeah.
She was like, "How the fuck are you eating all of this?" And I eat fast, so she's still in her first bowl, and I'm just gulping it up like crazy. And we had that probably 5 times. 5 or 6 times. We had it several times in Tokyo, and then we spent a couple days in Osaka. And the day we got there, I was like, "Oh, there's one down the street, so we need to go." And we got it there, and my wife actually got sick. We're not sure if it's from that or if it's from something that we got at 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven. We're going to blame it on 7-Eleven.
It's got to be, because she's like, "I don't want to eat it now." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. We're going to eat it again." But yeah, we are obsessed with it. Over here in the States, they only have it by Penn Station, and then it's basically Times Square.
Okay.
And it's like every time you order, it's like $30. And I'm like, my God, there's such a big difference between here and Tokyo, because over there it's just dollars and cents.
Yeah. So when you're eating ramen and you're slurping and the broth is going everywhere, are you a napkin tucker or you just take the napkin and then wipe your face
I
off?
just wipe it. My wife, so in Tokyo or in Japan in general, it's like a custom where if you're eating ramen and it's good, you slurp really loud.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't like that. So we're in the middle of eating, and this guy next to her, because the way it's set up, it's kind of like these individual seats that are like divided by just little dividers. So you basically just have one little spot where you're eating, and you don't see the people who cook for you. They just come to you. There's like a curtain in front of you, and they lift it. They give you your food, and they say thank you, and then they walk away. And this guy is just slurping. She's like, "We need to get the fuck out of here. I'm going to lose my mind." And so then, of course, I start fake slurping, and she's like, "I'm going to kill you."
Yeah, you're next. It reminds me, I was racing a half marathon once. This was in Texas. It was raining, and there was a guy behind me whose foot kept slapping. Right, it would slap the ground, and it would make like that puddle splash at the same time. And I was running with a buddy of mine, and I was like, "Dude, we've got to pick up the pace and drop this. I can't take it anymore." So we pick up the pace, and then what happens, of course, is the guy behind us, his foot slapping, picks up the pace too, because he's like, "I'm going to hang on to these guys." I was like, in the
Little
middle
did
of
you know he's pacing you.
exactly. He was stuck to our hip. Like after about a half mile, he finally stopped slapping his foot so hard because we dropped him a little bit, and we got far enough away we couldn't hear it. But I understand your wife's predicament with the slurping in that moment.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything that you've enjoyed over there when you were in Japan? Because you've been a few times
Mhm.
that you cannot get here in the States.
I mean, you can get it over here. You can get Wagyu beef, but over there it's much more common and it's much cheaper to an extent. We went to this when we went last year. I did a bunch of research like on Reddit, trying to find like a good steakhouse to go to celebrate when I was done the marathon. And we found this steakhouse that had a couple restaurants, but it had such good reviews that we went and we had lunch. And literally, as soon as we went and we left, we were like, "We're coming back next year." Because they give you the choice of all the different varieties of like grades of the meat, all the way up to like the master level to basically like sirloin. And we got kind of in the middle, and it just like melted in your mouth, and it was absolutely delicious. So when we went this year, we went for lunch one day, and then we went for dinner after the marathon, and we splurged a little bit and got the highest grade Wagyu beef you could get like in the country. And the chef made it, and I'm just sitting there like, "Oh my god, this is the most incredible steak I've ever had in my life." Um, and we became friends with I think the guy who owns the place, and he was like, "Here's my personal WhatsApp number. When you come back next year, let me know in advance. I'll book you, and we'll get you set up."
I love
Um,
it.
yeah, so it's just it was so good, so
Dude,
good.
isn't it amazing like the experiences that you can have with food that you'll recall? I mean, you just told me about Subway sandwiches of all the things in the world, right? And you had this memory associated with it. Like food has a way of transporting us
Mhm.
back in time to either people or areas and connections and the moments that we've been able to share. As you were talking, I was wondering, so what's accompanying the beef? Rice, vegetables, like what's next to it?
So it's you can get rice if you want, but it's vegetables. It was seasonal vegetables. So it was like mushrooms, I think, asparagus, um, onions, and garlic chips that they made. And then we got, I don't know exactly how to say it. I think it's called potaji, but it's basically like a porridge uh, soup that you get, and then you get a small side salad with homemade dressing that they make there. And was there anything else? I think that was it. But it was more than enough. It was funny though, because the first day we were there, my wife, I guess her brain just like didn't work. She couldn't like get the chopsticks to work. And so he walked over, he was like, "Do you need a fork?" And she was like, "Yeah." Meanwhile, I hadn't used chopsticks in my entire life until we went to Tokyo last year. And I just like, I'd always struggled with them, but I just like picked them up and I started to use them. And when we went last week, I was just like eating like it was nothing. And she was like, how do you know how to do this? And I've done this for years, and I can't do it right now.
Did you tell her you've watched The Karate Kid 18 times, and so now you
Exactly.
know?
Tell me I caught the fly.
Have you watched Cobra Kai on?
Oh yeah, I don't think I haven't watched the newest seasons, but my wife and I were obsessed with the first couple ones.
Same with dude. Like my wife and I got into it, like marathoning the episodes. And Ralph Macchio just got his star on the Walk of Fame out here in
Oh, nice.
LA. Yeah. And I don't know the guy that plays Johnny Lawrence, but he was at the display of Ralph Macchio getting his star, which was pretty cool. Before I ask you next question, shout out to Kevin Shea and Christy D for joining us over on Instagram. Appreciate your support. So let's do a crossover to one of our other shows, What's in Your Earbuds. Do you listen to music while you're running? And if so, what do you listen to?
I do. It's kind of all over the place. And my choice of music is very weird because I grew up on not what you would call normal like music, like popular music of the time. I was listening to basically two things. It was either musical theater or it was, of all things, video game music. And
Interesting.
so I love the music for like the Final Fantasy role playing games, and I've listened to them since probably I was about 13. And so my music is like a mixture of video game music, and then I find like fast, rock, EDM music that will help kind of propel me forward. And I actually have two running playlists. One that is just called Running Music and Shit, and then the other one is called Fast as Fuck Boy. So
yes,
when I usually it's really funny when I ran New York last year, it was my first time having those two playlists, and I got to about mile 17, and I texted my wife while I was running. I said, it's time to pull out the other playlist. And I started playing it. And I actually, my mileage went from like, I think it was like 7:30 a mile to like basically 7. And my wife at the end was like, how the fuck did you do that? Like like she actually, we were talking about this the other day when I ran, all my previous marathons before New York. She told me, she's like, I would be able to take my time. I could like go get breakfast and do whatever I wanted, and then like mosey my way over to the finish line to meet you and get pictures or a video of you. But after Tokyo last week and then New York, she was like, I don't have any time now because you finished so quickly now that I have to like rush to the finish line. And these last two marathons have been the first marathon, well, Tokyo last year, kind of, but basically like the last two marathons have been the first marathons where I've just like not been injured or had any issues at the end. Like I just finished and then I just keep walking. And so we had two of my friends come with us to New York last year, and she told them after I finished, she's like, yeah, it's going to take like a half hour. He's probably going to go to the medic tent, and then we have to walk out. We'll meet him like probably like 30, 45 minutes. And I texted her, I was like, I'm leaving right now. I'll meet you guys in like 10 minutes. She was like, huh? What are you talking about?
Oh, so out of curiosity, you're running a 7.5 to 7 minute mile. When you're texting, how many spelling errors are in there? Any?
Yeah, a lot. There's usually like random, like I hit enter a couple times, or I will like misspell a word, or sometimes I'll just type like one word and hope that she understands what I'm saying. I do also make it a habit to FaceTime her and her sister. They're like my two biggest fans. Her sister at the time, she lived in Florida. When I ran Boston last year and I finished all 6 World Marathon Majors, she flew up to be there. And I FaceTimed them actually last year when I did Tokyo, because I called them at halfway through and I was like, I'm feeling good. I think I'm going to be okay. And then I got the mile 20 and I was like, I'm going to hit a fucking PR. And this year was a little bit different because I called them at like mile 17, mile 20. And I was like, I am suffering because it was so hot. It was the hottest Tokyo Marathon apparently they've ever had. And I think it was, I don't know if it was my wife or her sister. Basically, our big thing that we say is don't be a bitch. And so they basically were like, don't be a bitch. You're going to finish. You only have 6 miles left. And I was like, you know what? Fine. And so I booked it for the last 6 miles, and my wife was like, "You finished 10 minutes faster than it said you were going to." And I was like, "Well, that's because I wasn't a bitch."
I was motivated. Craig Lewis, who hosts our show Running Tales, had Jamie the Juggler on. We might have to convene some way of getting Michael the Texter or Michael the FaceTimer on and just like do cameos as you're running your next marathon to family and friends of RTB.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. We'll probably charge like $1.50 for it, but we'll make some money on it.
Oh yeah.
So again, since you're based out of New York City, fictional run day for you. Who are you running with? Phoebe from Friends or Jerry Seinfeld?
I feel like Phoebe would be more fun to run with. She probably would keep me occupied, both with probably how she'd be running, but then also the things she'd probably be pointing out along the way. Probably all the dogs, and especially when I run up the West Side Highway, there's always some people that are they're dressed very oddly, and she probably would point them out as well.
She would probably point out the guitar players that you'd have to drop some change in their guitar case as you're going by as well. Shout out to Helgi Olafsson for joining us. Thanks, Helgi. Appreciate the support. So my last question for you, what show that has been based out of New York City is your favorite TV show or movie for that matter?
Oh, geez. Trying to think. Oh my goodness. There is nothing coming to mind right now.
I'll give you a couple of Hill Street Blues, Blue Bloods. Obviously, Seinfeld and Friends were based out of New York. Movies, The Godfather, based out of New York back in the day as well.
Actually, Wolf of Wall Street.
That's a good one.
That probably is my most recent favorite movie from there, based in New York.
So before you get fired up for marathons, you're going to start pounding your chest.
Oh yeah, got to bump those rookie numbers up.
Michael, I appreciate your time. Where can people come check you out? All the stuff that you're doing, honestly, for runners in our community, but for non-runners as well. Your approach to inclusivity and diversity, from my opinion, is unmatched, and I appreciate you doing the things that you do. So where can people find you?
That means a lot to me. So basically, TikTok, Instagram, Threads. I'm very bad at posting on YouTube, but everything is Mike Runs Marathons.
Awesome. For those of you that joined us, we appreciate your support. Check out the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review so that we can continue to bring great guests like Michael onto our show. Have a great rest of your Monday.